9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is going on, everybody? This is the Pressure Front Podcast. I'm my host, JT. I got my guy with me, my co-host, Lorenzo Alexander. So, we got a lot to talk about tonight.
I know we do, JG, right? A lot has changed over the week.
Man, alternate schedules. The Bills are one day we think they about to go 5-0 now with a forfeit. Then we know they 4-0. And we all across the board. But hey, if you guys are just tuning in, once again, this is the Pressure Front Podcast. Host JT, got Lorenzo Alexander with me. Zoe, where do we start? I guess we look back at the Raiders game.
Right.
To start with.
Yeah, and I think the team came out and did what they needed to do. Obviously, the offense continued to be able to move the ball, put up points. The defense looked like it's starting to come together and gel and be able to stop that run. And I really like my man. My man Levi Wallace went out. I hate to see that, but when Josh Norman came in, was able to create that strip, cause fumble, and things just really ignited after that, especially for the defense. I think Quentin Jefferson created another fumble, and that's really what put this defense over the top, and I think the offense as well and the team collectively. So it's really good to see those boys kind of turn up in that manner and really get this thing rolling with the Titans coming up, hopefully, who knows with that, and then especially the Kansas City Chiefs kind of back-to-back games.
I thought the defense woke up this week. And the first half, they were a little bit sluggish. I thought they were getting overmatched a little bit, but, overall, I thought they woke up in that second half. They play a lot better game. I noticed that Leslie Frazier started really sending some blitzes at Carr to move him off a spot. And I think last week you mentioned that. Don't let him get comfortable and sit back there. You got to move him off his spot. And once they started moving him, his effectiveness definitely decreased there. But yeah, they caused a couple of turnovers there. Josh Norman, debut. What did you think?
He did a great job. Especially igniting the defense. Josh has always had a little bit of swag to him, or I should say a lot of swag to him. And depending on where you stand, it can rub you the wrong way or the right way. And I think it's important that people are galvanized around him. And so when you play with him, he's the type of guy that you love to be around, has a lot of energy and a lot of juice, especially as a veteran. He understands the game and has really brought, I think, a bit of a swag to this defense in addition to what they already had. But having it on the back end, too, I think is important as well. And so it's been really cool to see what he's been able to do, because I know everybody was really high on him, based on what he was doing in training camp, suffering that hamstring injury and then being able to come out and make a big play as he did in the game last weekend to really create a momentum change was huge.
It pretty much changed the concept. It pretty much changed the game. I thought at that very moment was when the Bills locked in and we said, okay, this game is gonna end right here at this point. This is the end of it. They weren't gonna look back. Having a player like him, how much can that hype a defense up? And I guess my second question to that is, obviously with no fans, with the adrenaline, without the fans, is it hard to get that adrenaline going, you think, for these players?
Yeah, it definitely is. And I had a chance to talk to a couple of people over in the organization past week, and they were saying that was probably the hardest, most unique thing to overcome, because nobody's ever had to go through anything where you don't have anybody watching your games. Even when you go back to high school, you at least had a few hundred people cheering you on in close quarters. And so now playing at the highest level, and I think Sean has always done a good job of making sure that people on the sideline had great energy, whether he was a coach, a player that maybe inactive, or the practice squad guys, making sure that you bring the juice. But to ask somebody to do that for 4 quarters, it's really hard when you have nothing else to kind of feed you during that time. And there's some guys that are naturally rah-rah guys and are able to do it, but that's a really hard thing and a unique thing to be able to do for 4 quarters. And so if there's any place that I think, obviously COVID has really impacted, is the energy that you get from the fans. And that's why you need plays like Josh Norman made, creating those splash plays, whether it's strip fumble, a big-time sack, an interception, a big hit, whether it's special teams or defense, and then you have to be able to ride that wave for more than just a series. You really have to put in, 2 or 3 series back to back and kind of ride that emotional wave with that big play, hoping that it leads to another one and then another one and then another one. And then you allow your play, your camaraderie to really carry you emotionally throughout that game because you're just dominating, having fun. And it don't really matter if you at a park when you're playing like that. The energies just get high and everybody's feeling themselves. And so that's what they got to continue to do. And it was really fun to watch and see them get excited this week.
I thought the Raiders, because let's no doubt about it, the Raiders came into that game really banged up. But it's the professional football league, it's next man up mentality. I thought they actually came out and played the Bills pretty well for the amount of players that they had. I think when you're down your number 1, your number 2, and your number 3 receiver, that's a tough, tall task against a defense like this. But our boy Josh looked really good again.
Yeah.
The MVP caliber performance continues. This week he's 24-34, 288 yards, 2 touchdowns, one rushing touchdown. Extremely efficient. Once again, not turning the football over. I think he has one interception this year, and I know a lot of Bills fans are still mad about the interception call about that. But I got an interesting stat for you that we actually Dan Fetz found out. Now, obviously, Bills fans love Jim Kelly, and we love to compare to Avalon Kelly. But if you look at Jim Kelly's best year in Buffalo in 1991, the numbers are very close here.
Yeah.
Very close. But
yeah, they are. It's scary. It's kind of freaky how close they are. But yeah, Josh has really grown this year. I think a lot of people have been surprised, not the sense that he took a step forward, but how big of a step he's taken, because it's pretty significant. When you look around the league and see where he compares with the rest of the quarterbacks, when you think about the Aaron Rodgers, the Drew Brees, the Tom Brady's, the Russell Wilsons, the Patrick Mahomes, he's right there in the middle mix of that as far as what he's been able to do and accomplish as far as putting numbers up. And we know this is a team sport, and he'd be the first one to say, but just seeing how all those guys are out there working, Diggs, Smoke, Cole, can't wait to really get Dawson in the mix. And that's somebody who really hasn't been able to shine quite yet because of the injury that he suffered, but working him in there, his time is coming. And then obviously Singletary, really benefiting from the talent around him, not having to see 7 or 8 man boxes and is able to take advantage. And he's making people look silly out there. So I've been really pleased with the way he's been used in the pass game, the run game. And so it's just really fun to watch his offense just kind of march down the field. They're going to get at least a couple of first downs. And as a defender, you can catch your breath. And even if they don't score, they're going to flip the field and give you an advantageous starting position as a defense to do your job at a high level and then get the ball back for them. So they only have to get, maybe a first down or 2 to be in scoring position.
You mentioned the defense as far as the offense holding the ball a bit more. Now, obviously, we knew the last 2 seasons on offense, one of the biggest problems for you guys on defense was the 3 and outs and getting the rest. And now that this offense is driving down the field, that's going to really be a lot of rest for the defense going towards the end of the season, right? Because when you're going 3 and out, and that defense continuously playing through the first 10, 12 games, does that wear on you towards the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to how many plays you're playing. And so once your play count starts getting up there significantly higher than the average or what other people around the league, it does play a toll. And if you're a younger team, maybe not as much, but it does impact you. And I don't really care who you are. And so you can always tell the more reps you have. And so by them holding the ball, keeping guys fresh, not only is it giving these guys time to kind of come together and really feel themselves as a defense and build that chemistry out on the field, it's also going to, like you said, provide them to be fresh later in the year as it gets colder, as the season wears on, to really still be able to play at a high level and not feel exhausted.
Yeah, I want to talk about Stephon Diggs. Then we're going to move on to this Tennessee game. Stephon made a catch in this game. I mean, this is a grown man catch here.
Yeah. I saw this one. Yeah.
This is a grown man catch. I mean, is there anything as a receiver that Stephon Diggs cannot do? And adding his attitude, because he got attitude too. Okay,
he got swag. I'm surprised they didn't throw a flag on him on that one. I was like, oh, okay, they didn't throw it. Thank God, because he flexed on the homeboy after he mossed him.
Right. I mean, having Stephon and Josh Norman, Stephon on one side of the ball, Josh Norman on the other side of the ball, how meaningful is that to this core? Because I mean, the last couple of years, you guys had intensity, you guys played tough, but everybody kind of, stay even keel. But now you got two guys on each side of the ball that's just bringing the amp, if you want to call it.
Yeah, it definitely helps when you have guys that play with energy, that play with emotion. And I think a lot of guys do. It's just a little bit different. I know some guys on that offensive line that really get amped up and, talk trash and really play off of some emotion. But it just adds to it. It fuels the fire, especially when you make a big play like that. It just gets everybody going. I need to do something too. Hey, man, we got to get this thing in. It just picks everybody up. And then we, as a defense, and when you see somebody do that, okay, it's our turn to go out here and show what we can do as well. But really loving his mentality, his attitude as far as Diggs and what he's brought. Because I don't know about last year, but definitely the years prior, probably Josh's first year, even I would say even last year, because his percentage is way up as far as passes over 20 yards. I think it's up from 25% to like around 70% of him connected on those deep passes, which is huge. But having somebody that's going to go up with the mentality like Stefon Diggs does, to take the ball, this is my rock, and I own it. I mean, it's huge to have that confidence when you have a guy one-on-one. You can put it up there because that ball could have easily have been intercepted if somebody who went up there half-heartedly or not as aggressive or with the confidence to catch that ball, and then that does something to Josh's mentality. But because Diggs is the player he is, he goes up, grabs the rock, and that only fuels the fire as far as what Josh is able to do and willing to do as far as putting the ball up and allowing his receivers to go get it.
And Josh kind of has that mentality too a little bit. He's a competitor. He's a fiery competitor. And I mean, I think when you bring competitors together, like you mentioned before, that could be good, it could be bad in a way. But I think for this team, it's definitely a positive, especially with our fans.
Yeah, they do a great job of it. And I think they know where that line is. Sean does a great job. Be who you are, play the way you're going to play, but understand you still have some accountability. So there is a line that you have to be aware of. And obviously playing this game, every once in a while, you're going to cross it, as Josh has done, gotten the flag, and then you ring it back in, and then you get back on task, and then you end up finishing the game. So those are things that you want to know. You always want to play with emotion, but you got to be smart and making sure that you're never putting yourself in a compromising position that's going to hurt you, your wallet, and your pockets, and obviously your team by getting anything that's unnecessary, whether it's taunting, late hits, things of that nature that can happen when you are an emotional player.
You mentioned the Devin Singletary. Now, this game, he didn't have the best game as far as yards per carry, but he was effective. And I realized that when you run the ball, it's not always going to be long chunks of yardage. Sometimes you're going to have to take the short. How important was it in this particular game that they continue to run the ball?
You have to. You got to make teams honor it. And I think because they was always in a position of control and never really, and the game was always in their control, you're still able to run your run plays. You still want to grind on the defensive lineman. Allow your own lineman to have those double teams. Let them get physical and not have to just kick back a whole bunch of times and one-on-one with these athletes. But hey, let me put you in this phone booth, dog you out, and by the fourth quarter, let's see if you still want to pass rush or still get off the ball. And so it's an important piece, even though you may not be gashing them for 4 yards a snap or a pop, you still want to be able to be physical with the defensive line and still hit them and just wear them out, getting up to the second level, imposing your will on it, because that does wear and tear, and it does mean something, especially in that fourth quarter, because you never know when one is going to pop, especially with Devin back there.
Yeah, I mean, I love my guy Motor, man. I really love the kid.
Motor's nice.
And I want to give him. I actually want to give him kudos. His improvement in the passing game is, day and night to what he was as a rookie coming in last year. I mean, you could tell, you can see the work that he's put in. Everything looks so natural now from catching the ball at the back.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the hardest things to do. I mean, and that's probably one of the, especially in this day and age, if you want to be a three down black, you got to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield. You also got to be able to pick up blockers too when they want to keep you in. And so he's done a great job of growing in that area. Skip there does a great job of coaching the running backs and always hinting on the details and making sure they're putting themselves in a position to succeed and doing different drills. And so it's really been good to see him develop there in the passing game. and in all facets, because that's where the dominant guys, when you think about Christian McCaffrey's, the Alvin Kamara's, those guys are 3 down backs, first, second, and third down based on what they're able to do in the passing game.
Right. Devin has unbelievable work effort. I can only see him going up from here. He still continues to improve. So if you guys have not heard the news yet, the news around the world, the Bills game for Sunday has been rescheduled for now until Tuesday, October 13th at 7 p.m. versus the Titans due to the COVID outbreak in the Titan organization. Now, Zoe, we got to dive into it.
Yeah.
Guys went and had a private practice. On one hand, I'm like, what are you guys thinking? On the other hand, as a competitor, I'm thinking you guys are 3-0. You're trying to be best that you could be.
Right.
Where do we go?
I get it. I understand it, but I mean, at the same time, you got to realize all the repercussions that or consequences that you can potentially have. And I don't know if guys really understand how the virus works, and I'm even still learning. I don't really have a great grasp of it, but from my perspective and my viewpoint, obviously you've had a significant amount of people already test positive on your team, but you may not be one of those guys, and so you get a negative test back and say, well, I'm good. Let me go out here. We can still get our work in. I know they shut down the facility, but I'm not infected, so I can go out here and put a practice together, not knowing or not really understanding, or maybe not even really thinking it through. I don't know where their state of mind is, or or what type of conversations they had. Not understanding that you can test negative, but still be contagious because the viral load hasn't worked up high enough to where you test positive. So you got a negative test back from the day before. That day maybe you become contagious unknowing because you just took the test that morning, let's say Wednesday morning, and you wouldn't get your positive test back until the next day. And so now you've put yourself out there in practice instead of following the protocols that the NFL and the PA have agreed to, trying to minimize this so we don't have any cancellations or forfeits, because once that happens, guys don't get paid. And so now the NFL is trying to figure out a way, how can you push games back, how you got the scheduling. So you have all these issues. But I definitely understand why guys were doing it. But sometimes you have to go against what your knee-jerk reaction is and your gut is telling you and what has been ingrained in you as a football player, and step back and say, is this the smartest thing I should be doing? I know I should be doing this, but is this the smartest thing based on the environment that we're in right now and the reason why we can't go to practice? And so I think that wasn't all thought through all the way, and hence now you get the game, a few more positive COVID test comes out, and the game is getting pushed back, and who knows, it's still up in the air. It could possibly even be forfeited. And then at that point, the Bills won't get paid, and they'll just have to skip and play the Kansas City Chiefs, and nobody really knows if they're going to be able to put the game on the back end or find anywhere else to use it, because they've already moved their bye week based on what happened last week after the Minnesota game.
We've never seen anything like this. And honestly, if people want to go back, the last forfeit of any NFL game was back in 1927. So we're talking almost 100 years here.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy. And you just have to, people are a creature of habit, and I would say elite athletes are even more so, because what gets you success, and you want to try to stay in that routine. But when something has been introduced into your environment that is something similar to COVID, you have to adapt. You have to fight against those natural urges and figure out better ways to stay ready. And maybe you won't be as ready as you want to, but at least you'll get to play, you'll get paid, and you get to pay the next game. And maybe you have one loss now. It's just part of it. And it's not ideal, but this whole entire situation isn't ideal. And so we just have to make sacrifices, even though we may not like it or love it. But the goal is to get through the season. Obviously, the goal is to get through the season and win, but you have to deal with the hand that's given to you. It's just like having a whole bunch of players injured or your quarterback injured. Most of the time when your starting quarterback gets injured, you're probably going to lose that game. but you don't go in there thinking any differently. You just deal with it. And so you have to just deal with this. That's the same as having an injury when you can't practice. Your whole team is injured, and you may have to just go off of 1 day of work or 2 days of work versus the 3 days. And and it's just part of the beast right now. And guys are going to have to adjust. And hopefully, the rest of the league notices it, realizes it, and learns from it, and it doesn't reproduce itself. Because if it gets to 2 or 3 teams that ends up like this, it's going to get real scary for the league.
All right. And guys, not to cut Lorenzo off for stop, make sure that after this show is over, if you didn't catch this live and you're in a place where you need to be quiet, you need to put some earbuds on, you can now follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, iTunes, under the Pressure Front Podcast. The links are actually in the bio of this show. So make sure you get over there and subscribe and follow so you can listen to us on the road, at work, or in the gym.
Sure.
So I don't know, man. I mean, so let's just talk about this as if we got to prepare for this game. Now this game is on a Tuesday. How does this affect the mental preparation of the guys? What Sean McDermott is coaching? I mean, this is odd. It's alternate.
Yeah, it is odd. I mean, it's almost an extended week, and so I know knowing Sean, I know he's not going to kill the guys during this time. Probably allow them to get their legs underneath them. Maybe take one of these extra days to look at some Kansas City Chiefs film, maybe for the veterans that can handle it, because the way it's working right now, they're supposed to play on Tuesday versus the Titans, but if we continue to get positive tests, that game will then be forfeited, and then they'll play the Chiefs on Thursday. And so if you go this whole time without preparing for the Chiefs, then now the Bills are at a disadvantage because they haven't worked any of those schemes or plays all week. That is much different and a much different offense, much different personnel than the Tennessee Titans. And so that's something that I'm kind of worried about. I think preparing for the Titans is simpler because they're going to give the ball to Derrick Henry. They're going to run play action off of that. And as long as you can stop that defensively, you can get after those guys and put the ball in that Tannehill's hand and give yourself a chance to win. And so it's definitely going to be hard. I know Sean is already probably even knowing it last week when the Tennessee Steelers game got canceled. And there was a possibility, well, it may go into next week. He had already started preparing what ifs. What if this happens? What if this happens? What are the possibilities? I know he probably called the league a couple of times. And so it will be out of the ordinary, whatever they do. But I know Sean is at least prepared or has something in place to help the guys the best way to kind of get through these next couple of days, having to play on a Tuesday, which is later. And then if that doesn't happen, and then playing on the Thursday, but making sure you're still prepared for the Chiefs as well as best as you can.
That's a tough job. That's a tough job. And I mean, especially it's a pressure on the offense too, but that's a lot of pressure on the defense to prepare for a Kansas City team without knowing if you're going to be playing them or not.
Right. It's really hard. And then, so you potentially can walk into the Tennessee Titans game with, Kansas City Chiefs plays in your mind. And so hopefully that doesn't distract you from the job at hand. So I don't really know how they're going to handle it. I know Sean's going to come up with the best solution because he does have like a think group, innovative people that he's always bouncing ideas off of. And they're going to try to come up with something that makes sense for the team and the guys so that you can kind of almost simultaneously prepare. I know one thing, because today, Thursday, Friday, they already have Tennessee Titans stuff already done. And so, like I said, I mean, I could see him, maybe Saturday or Sunday starting on the Chiefs, watching some film. I know they've already done it upstairs in the scouting department, but at least for some of your veterans, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer type, obviously the offensive line, the quarterbacks, start getting on to the Chiefs so you at least have a little bit of understanding of what they do if it happens that we have to play them on a short notice as well without actually game planning for them and running those plays in practice.
Since they played the Raiders, who pretty much last week ran more of a spread offense, and they played the Rams, who we spoke previously about with the misdirections, we know the Chiefs are kind of similar to both of those teams with their plays. A little bit different. I mean, Chiefs got a lot of ballers. Let's not undercut them. But can that help at all?
No, it cannot. I mean, if you're not, I mean, obviously you see plays, yeah, you know where you're going to be at, but you really got to be dialed in on tendencies of where guys are lining up at, who's where is Tyreek, where is Kelsey, obviously Patrick Mahomes. You got to be able to break guys down. And so, yes, you've seen it, but you've seen it from other guys. And so you really need to be dialed in for that week as far as what that group does specifically, because everybody has their own kind of spin on things, especially when you think about a guy like an Andy Reid, who is, ageless and still innovative, and always has the best first 15 plays that can send you on a goose hunt trying to figure out what they're doing to you. And so you have to have some time to really sit down and digest and really dissect what they do. And prior games are really only going to help you with the technical stuff, where your eyes, your feet, your hands, and how do you play certain things. But this is a mental game to some extent. You really got to understand what guys are doing and how they're attacking you, because then that allows you to play fast and allows your athleticism and all your fundamentals to take over and allows you to be great in the person you are.
I don't know, Zoe. I don't know. I feel for the guys this week. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, we know that COVID has just really just changed everything in 2020, but I mean, this is taking a whole new level. But there is a familiar face in Tennessee as we're going to prepare to play them. Ryan Tannehill is now the quarterback at Tennessee Titans. Seems like he's had some sort of a resurgence of a career. You guys saw him multiple times in Miami. Give us an insight on how to prepare for Tannehill, what he does, and what he does well.
Yeah, and he was there. He was a quarterback there last year, I believe, when we played him too. I think he had taken over by then. And so the guys are familiar with him. He is a solid quarterback that does a great job within their system of operating off of the run game, the play actions. I mean, I think they're significantly high. Obviously, the Henry effect and what you have to do to stop him, that's the number one thing. And then when you're doing that, he's coming off play action, finding guys behind the linebackers, finding guys on deep overs, kind of hitting some of those soft points of the zone when guys are really trying to fly up to stop the run. And so he's good. He's solid. He's a guy that is going to manage the game, but if you get to him, just like most quarterbacks, you can fluster him and really make him throw you the ball and give you some balls as far as interceptions. And so guys are going to have to be diligent about understanding their pass rush, but all that comes off of first and second down. And you want to make this guy, you want to know that he is dropped back, because I think that's when he's least dangerous. And so you have to win on first, second down, put him in some third and longer situations, and then you can really pin your ears back and go get after him, make him uncomfortable, and then he becomes average. But, like most guys, if you let him sit in there, I mean, he'll pick you apart. He can make all the throws and find the holes in the zones and, just like a solid, smart veteran quarterback.
Speaking about getting to him, very sneakily athletic. Don't forget, Tannehill was actually a wide receiver there at Texas A&M. So he still got a little athleticism to him. He doesn't run as much as he used to, but he still got a little bit. You got to watch it. Derrick Henry. This is a big dude. You guys did a really good job against him last year in Tennessee. You guys did well against Tennessee last year, and they had Humphreys last year. They had AJ Brown. They had Corey Davis when you guys played them. But you guys did good against Derrick Henry. You hear yourself getting a sack there against Mariota.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for Derrick Henry? What do you got to do? What do you got to do to stop him? What do you do to slow him down?
You just got to hit him with population. You got to get to him before he gets going north and south. You got to make a guy like that check every single gap and bounce to the outside, which he's able to do. He has great speed for the size that he is, a great stiff arm. So I know the DBs all week have probably been working, chopping that stiff arm and tackling him, but you got to have multiple guys on him because he'll run through 3 or 4 guys. I mean, he did it to us last year. And so bring your big boy pads, get ready. Because I remember how I felt after that game. I was so exhausted from hitting him, chasing him. I think I had to play. I think Matt might have got nicked up in that game. I was playing a lot more. And it's a draining type game. So make sure you eat your Wheaties and bring your big boy pads because it's gonna be all day because they're gonna try to impose their will on you with their run game and Derrick Henry, and especially if the game is tight. And that's why it's important for the offense to continue to put points up, try to take this ball away a couple of times, and make them feel like they have to get out of their run game and put the ball in Tannehill's hands.
Another team that's sort of like the Rams, they're going to stick to their game plan no matter what. They're not going to change. They're not going to change at all. But Henry, last year, it seems like I thought you guys showed the blueprint to stop him. But even after that, I said, okay, teams are going to stop him. Now, he got stronger as the year went on, which is very different because this is a big guy. He takes a lot of hits. As many hits as he takes, he gives out. So,
I've been a recipient of a couple of them. I mean, I don't even remember. It didn't even feel like we stopped him last year. I mean, how many yards did he have? Did he have under?
I want to say he had like 50 or 60. He didn't have over 70.
Okay, well, that's the type of game and physicality he's gonna bring because it felt like he had 150 after trying to tackle him in some of the runs he had. But yeah, I mean, everything is ran through him, and so he's the key. If you can stop him, put the ball in the Tannehill's hands, it's going to help everybody. And so, yeah, will they keep with their game plan? Yes, but if it's the third quarter and you're up on them, 2 scores, 2.5 scores, they're gonna have to pass the ball because most teams, even though we're watching a big play right here, are not going to methodically go down the field and just gain 3, 4, 5 yards a pop when they're down by 2.5 scores. And so that's why it's such a complimentary game that the offense does a great job of putting points up, and then we find a way to take the ball away a couple of times, as well as stymie the run consistently on first and second down.
Now, back-to-back weeks, we go against 2 of the AFC elites. They did a very good job on Josh Jacobs last week, corralling him and keeping him in check, with not only in the running game but in the passing game as well. Coming off of a performance like that against Josh Jacobs, that a little extra added confidence when you're coming up with this game against Derrick Henry?
Yes, and as good as Josh Jacobs is, Henry is still he's a different monster. He's a different breed. I mean, and just respect to the dude, man. I mean, he's the king, he's the king for the reason. And so this is a grown man. I don't think how really big this dude is. Like, I feel like I'm a decent sized dude. I feel like a little kid when I'm standing next to him. And so, and I also pride myself on being a big hitter. But when you hit this dude, it's like steel. I mean, I'm not trying to soup him up, but the dude is legit. And so you have to constantly bring it. You have to constantly have guys in their gaps. You have to constantly have your corners tackled. And when you have a guy that's imposing like that, it can be a little daunting task. And so, yes, Josh Jacobs is good and talented in his own right, but there's certain guys in our league that just take it to the next level or step up. Because like I said, Henry he got to be 6'4", 6'5", and all of 2. He got to be at least 260. Yeah, I feel like heavier than that. So but it's not an overwhelming. It's not like you can't handle him. But you have to give him that respect as far as the way you approach him and when you attack him, that this dude is 6'5", 260, running the rock and can run. And so, boom, I'm not getting stuck on blocks. Okay, one guy makes the hit, I'm ripping off. Another guy's coming. The third guy's trying to push the ball out. And there's got to be that mentality all game. Because it only takes a little bit for you to let up. Oh, we got him. Oh, I got him lined up. No, you don't. 50. You know what I mean? And so it's just a consistent grind. And so the best way to get that grind off of you is the offense to control the ball, score a lot of points, stymie them early, and get them away from the run game or make them feel like they have to. Because I wouldn't call this an explosive offense, but they can obviously move it down the field, but it's not explosive like a Kansas City Chiefs, where they can be right back in the game. And you're like, man, we were just up on them like Houston 24-0, and now they back in it. You got to put them in that type of situation so they get away from what they really want to do, and that's to control the ball by running it down your throat.
Just something about that Oiler/Titan organization with these big running backs, starting with Earl Campbell, then moving to Eddie George, then moving on down to Derrick Henry now. The receiving core, very, very big as well. I mean, it seems like they're just titans all across the board. I guess it's a perfect name for them. A.J. Brown, very big, very physical. Corey Davis, very big, very physical. You added Adam Humphries there in the slot, which is a lot like our Cole Beasley in the slot. And then you got, I think, a dynamic and very underrated tight end in Jonnu Smith.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think John, he might even had a big play versus us last year. What number is he?
81. He did.
For like 50 or 60 yards. And so, yeah, he's definitely a dynamic guy that you have to kind of keep an eye out on. Obviously, he's not the number one guy, but they use him in certain ways where he can have some explosion plays. And then it's just making sure that we are playing, not giving up the deep ball. That's something that you can sometimes get into an issue with these big receivers. And so just making sure that we're playing good eyes, good technique, and not giving up any big plays down the field. Try to keep things in front of you. And again, when these guys catch the rock, guys got to be hunting up, flying to the ball, and tackling very well. So if anything, the most important thing in this game is going to be tackling because of the size of the guys you're going to be going against, especially when we talk about Henry and the guys on the outside.
One benefit to possibly playing this game a little bit later in the week is, Trey White is kind of questionable with a back. I'm sure he'll play, but he's been nursing a little back injury. John Brown has been a battle in the calf. Cole Beasley, the foot. So you're going to, and actually Zach Moss also a foot. You get at least a couple extra days of rest to maybe get those guys back up to speed and 100%. Maybe a 2 veteran rest days at that for some of these guys here.
Yeah, and that's pretty significant. I mean, moving the game back 2 days essentially gives you 2 more days of recovery, and that training staff is probably one of the best I've been around. And so, whether it's Joe Mika or Joe Collins. They do a great job of identifying the issues and coming up with a good plan that's going to get you back as quick as possible. And these guys are probably going to already play this week anyway, but now it makes you feel real fresh when you go into this game. And then who knows, it may be forfeited, and then you're really fresh for the Kansas City Chiefs. And so even though it'd be hard from a mental standpoint and a game planning standpoint, the freshness of playing a game at being at 100% is always important, because if you don't feel good or if something is bothering you, I don't care how good the game plan is, you're just not going to execute as well as you probably should. That was
actually part of that mental battle you were talking about last week about learning to play through injuries and understand you have it. You know what? I want to backtrack a little bit. You just talked about Joe Mika and the training staff. And this is something that has been really good in Buffalo for, I think, the last 3 to 4 years here. Why is this training staff so good? Why are they so on top of things? They even got an award last year, I believe, for the best training staff in the NFL.
Yeah, and it comes to no surprise to me, because I just know how those men and women operate, and they just do a great job of having a wraparound service, and they are continuing to learn. And so they have meshed our sports science department together with our training staff, and they do a great job of identifying maybe some collective issues where maybe we had a ton of hamstrings a couple of years ago. So, okay, this is why we're having hamstrings. So let's make sure that we introduce this into the weight room to help prevent that. Then our numbers come down. Another thing they do great is they continue to learn. And so it's not your traditional ice and stem. They're always trying to come up with some proactive ways and some new age ways based on the science to introduce. And so whether that's muscle activation technique, whether it's dry needling, whether it's some type of modality, whether it's hip mobs or an adjustment that you may need, they're always constantly thinking about new ways and not necessarily always relying on those machines that everybody thinks is really doing something, but it's really not. And so I think with that and having a head coach that actually believes in all these things and allowing those guys and encouraging guys to actually go into the training room has really paid huge dividends for guys being healthy. And then when they are down, minimizing the amount of time that they miss, and they come back and they are not missing additional time because they re-injure themselves. And so they just do a great job all the way around, everybody in there, from Nate, who's the head guy, all the way down to the interns and the people that they bring in that work with you year round, have been awesome. Some of those people are great friends, because not only are they taking care of you, they care about you as well as far as who you are off the field. And that always adds to the recovery process, in my opinion.
Great breakdown. I just think, I wanted you to break that down because we see that Buffalo is always healthy and we've been healthy for the last couple of years. I don't think we actually hear why and what this training staff does. So, I mean, that was a great breakdown to give us insight.
Yeah, they're proactive. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. They don't wait for injuries. If I had a history of hamstrings, they're trying to do things during the off season, during the season, during training camp to make sure that I reduce my chances of suffering an injury. So not only do they do great things on the back end, but beforehand, they're very proactive about identifying guys' shortcomings that have maybe plagued them throughout their career.
Right. So before we get to your three keys of the game, I want to talk about this Titans defense. This is a defense that Mike Vrabel built pretty much in his mode. They're very physical. They have a lot of good pieces. Kevin Byard, Kenny Vaccaro, Jayon Brown, Isaiah Simmons up front. Give us some insight on this Titans defense and what the Bills have to do to beat them and what their strengths are.
Yeah, I think you said it. I mean, they're physical and they want to impose their will on you. They're going to play very aggressive style defense mentality, much like their head coach. And so it's not, the game is not complex. I think we overcomplicate things sometimes. Sometimes you got to put a hat on a hat, move some guys, and get the run going. And you have to impose your will on them in that regard. Knowing Dable, I can see him easily coming in, spreading them out, forcing them to match up, which they can't do, and exploiting them that way. And through it, spreading them out, then you find ways to run the ball, which they've been doing as well. So the biggest thing is run the ball and be physical, impose your will, and sustain drives. Obviously, if you have a big time play and a shot and get off the field, great. But you want to sustain drives, and so that really means winning on third down, putting yourself in third and manageable so you can win those downs and extend it, get those guys tired, and over time just impose your will on them in the run game.
In special teams, Andre Roberts, another big return, set up a touchdown last week. Once again.
Yeah, Dre's the man. I mean, he's a Pro Bowler, all-pro caliber returner that oftentimes gets, overlooked. But, at least 2 out of the 4 games, he's had some pretty significant returns that's put him in places that have been allowed to points, or if they didn't score, at least flip the field enough to now that when the offense gets the ball back, they may be right back where they're at, like on the 40-yard line, the 50-yard line, or wherever it may be, getting ready to go in and at least have a field goal at minimum. And so Dre is a tough runner. I love seeing him out there getting it. He's been about this close from breaking one to the house. And so every time I'm like, man, you can't let the kicker get you. I'm messing with him. But Dre's a competitor, man. I love Dre. Really enjoyed being in the locker room with him. We were close as far as him being maybe 2 or 3 lockers down. So I have a lot of respect for what he's done and the niche that he's carved out for him as being one of the premier return guys in this league.
I thought he had one last week. The one that the punt return corner, I thought he had it. And speaking of Brian Dable, the Bills, I think last season they had about 17 plays total of 4 wide receiver sets. This year, they're well over 60 plays of 4 wide receiver sets. And also pre-snap motion, number 3 in the league, 22.7% of pre-snap motion for that offense. He's moving these pieces around and creating mismatches. Hats off to Brian Dable. So it's that time. 3 keys to the game if we have a game versus the Titans this week.
Right. Yeah, I think I kind of alluded to it as far as the offense. Just sustain drives. I mean, if you have big plays, great, but just sustain drives. And for me, that means win on third down. So you have to put yourselves in some third and manageables, third 2 to 3 preferably, but 5 and 6 is still good enough for this offense and what they're able to do when they bring in those 4 wide receiver sets that you talked about. So sustain drives, tire this defense out, because then that's going to allow you to impose your will by running the ball on them. 2 is for the defense. We have to make sure that they are stopping Henry first and second down. That's their offense. That's the engine. That makes everything go. The play actions, the boots, all those things. That elevates Tannehill's game to another level. And so you put them in some third and disadvantaged spots. He's good enough to convert, but he's not going to beat you doing that all game. So you need to put him there and then put the pressure on him. And then lastly, continue to see what we did last week with the turnover, stripping the ball, getting it out, at least 2 for sure. But I would love to be able to get 3 in this game, which would really be great for this defense confidence, kind of continue to move forward, and we'll definitely put this team in the win column.
Hey, you heard it best. Zoe said it. So, guys, that's the 3 keys to the games. I mean, hopefully we have a game this week. Everything's still up in the air. This thing is crazy. We don't really know what's going on, but we plan to be back next Thursday or Wednesday. We'll let you guys know when we know what the Bills are going to do. Make sure, again, that you're following us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor Podcasts, and links are in the bio. Make sure that you're donating to Zoe's Lorenzo Alexander ACES Foundation. Help for all the great things that Lorenzo does with the kids out there in California and in Buffalo. And tune in next week. I mean, Bills are 4-0, maybe 5-0. I don't know what they are, but either way, everybody, please, with the COVID numbers rising again, please just be safe, be smart, and stay close to your families. Other than that, Zoe, any final words?
No, you said it all, JT. Obviously, on top of that, it's time to vote. So make sure we get out there and vote. And I know some states you can do some early voting, and so that's always good. But just first, make sure that you're educated on who you're standing with, who you're standing for. And I'm not just talking about presidential election, I'm talking about locally as well, which is probably more important in this case. So that's my words for the week, words of wisdom for the week. And everybody stay safe. God bless. And we'll see you next week.
Hey, guys, that's a wrap. Zoe, thanks. See you guys later next week. Go Bills.
Go Bills.